Welcome to our That Place and Praise. I'm Ginger and I'm so glad you're here. This video is a little bit different from what I normally post in my channel. I'm going to dive into my illustration process and share what I use, how I develop my illustrations, and where I pick up my inspiration. One thing I haven't shared about myself, I'm an aspiring children's book writer and illustrator. I haven't gone commercial yet, but I'm constantly studying the craft of writing middle grade novels and picture books, and also illustrating ideas in ways that can attract a younger audience. And there are tons of illustrators out there, and each would speak of a different technique. Some would use traditional media like paper and paint. Some use digital apps like Procreate or Adobe Photoshop or Illustrator, while others combine both. But what I'll show you is how I personally create mine using my style and medium that works for me. Hopefully there's something in this video that can help you, whether or not you're into illustrations yourself. For this project, I'll use Kuretake Gansai Tambi watercolor and Staedtler Tri-Plus fine liner pens. Japanese Gansai paints are very vibrant, but they tend to be more opaque compared to North American watercolor brands. But it's my go-to paint set because they're easy to manipulate. The color palette is limited though, so I mix a lot to achieve a wider spectrum. Sometimes I supplement with Caran d'Ache color too, which is what I'll also use sparingly in this whimsical illustration. So most artists use graphite pencils when sketching their ideas on paper. I like to sketch with colored pencils instead, because I tend to be clumsy when I draw, and it's happened too many times that I smudge the pencil and make huge gray messes all over my paper. Here I'm using a red Prismacolor colored pencil. It's not as easily erasable as any ordinary pencil, but the red sketch marks here can easily blend into my illustration when I start painting with watercolor, so that's okay. Before you start with illustrating, it's important to know where you gather your inspiration. A lot of people go to Pinterest or Instagram, and I sometimes do that too, but I don't look at other people's work so I can copy them. I browse only so that I feel motivated to paint, because somehow flipping through books or magazines or scrolling through colorful Pinterest boards, they give me an emotional rush that kind of push me to pick up a pencil and start drawing as well. But in terms of ideas, I pick mine from everyday life. Like, I look at ordinary things with sensitivity to details. For this art, for example, obviously you'll never see a building that looks like this, but during my travels in Malaysia, I picked details from the many buildings and landmarks we saw, and I added those photos into my compilation of references. Like if there's a door I liked, I took photos of that, or if there's a window or a crown molding or a tower that attracted my attention, I took photos of those. I pay attention to designs I see around me and incorporate those in my illustration. So if there are flourishes in the iron railings of a staircase or an arc over a tunnel, I pay attention to all of those things. That's what I meant when I said that I look at ordinary items in everyday life with sensitive eyes. You can try that too. Like, try walking through a grocery aisle and pay attention to the product labels. You'll be surprised at the countless ideas you'll get from the fonts they use or the design elements they include, like borders or scrolls or the patterns on the labels. Okay, the fun thing about illustrations is that you can let your imagination run wild. You can be whimsical and create unrealistic or dreamy scenes and characters like what you see me do here. You have stylistic freedom. Unless you're working, of course, with an author and you're bound by the story elements. In that case, your illustration has to flow with the plot and whatever input the author gives you. Personally, I'm not intimidated by crooked lines, and I don't always draw to scale, but that's just my style. Others may disagree. Some illustrators prefer their drawings to be sterile, where every line edge is sharp and perspectives are on point, as if the drawing is an architectural blueprint. But I'm more of a messy, organic type of artist. I like texture, and I'm not afraid to show that the illustration was hand-drawn. Don't get me wrong, I do admire the work of other artists who build layers through Procreate or use filters in Photoshop and make the art look like a Pixar animated film. They're all very pretty too. I'm just saying that it's not my style. It's not the type of technique I'm comfortable with. Although sometimes I do scan my paintings and clean them up in Photoshop, like I erase some excess sketch marks that I didn't get to cover up while I was painting, or maybe touch up whatever mistakes I did, or sometimes I alter the vibrancy or desaturate the painting if I ended up going crazy with the colors. But on the whole, I try to preserve the handmade quality of my illustrations. I guess what I'm saying is that there are countless illustration techniques and styles as there are artists in the world. You'll get lost if you try to imitate everyone you see. You kind of have to find your own identity, dance to your own tune, if you will, and tailor fit your techniques to what works best for you. Find your art personality, your niche style. You find your comfort zone and develop from there. Maybe at first you can copy from your favorite artists and learn from them, but eventually you have to muster the courage to venture on your own and add your own personality and flavor into your illustrations. Okay, so after painting with watercolor, I normally use colored fine liners to define the boundaries of my painting. Like I like using Staedtler Triplus because the ink is water soluble. I always run a damp brush on the ink marks to blend the colors smoothly so they look like they're part of the watercolor. Sometimes I use black ink and a dip pen to ink my sketches, but other times I use colored pencils if I kind of want the edges to be more subdued and less glaring than black ink. If you've been to my channel long enough, you'll know I love colors and I'm not inhibited to use them. For children's book illustrations, however, sometimes it's important to tone down the colors a bit and saturate only the parts that you consider as your focal point. Those are focal points. Those are the portions of the page that you want your readers to focus on. I mean, your reader's eyes should gravitate on those parts, while everything else on the page is subdued, like maybe the background is more grayscale or secondary design elements are in the shadows. Then you throw in all the warm tones in the focal point and that part which actually tells the story. But for this whimsical illustration I'm painting right here, the whole building itself is my focal point, and that's why I'm not holding back with the colors. Alright friends, I hope this video gave you a glimpse of my illustration process and it inspired you to give this idea a try. So go ahead and patch together architectural elements you like and create a fairy tale building just like this. Have fun, and I'll see you again next time in this channel. This is Ginger from Art That Plays and Prays. Bye now.